So today we're going to be talking about why and how I was able to forgive a narcissist that entered my life not that long ago. So when we're talking about those people out and about who suffer from narcissism or who have narcissistic personality disorder, we're talking about someone who lacks empathy. We're talking about someone who feels entitled to exploit the emotions of others. So we're talking about entitlement, exploitation, and this idea that they lack empathy. So they're empathy impaired. Empathy is that emotion that keeps us in check as human beings. If I know that speaking to you a certain way is going to hurt you, and I can have an emotional, empathic response to you, then that will prevent me from wanting to hurt you. When we have empathy for other people, we can imagine how this other person feels. We have a visceral response to, oh, that person's in pain. We don't derive pleasure from torturing people emotionally. We don't feel entitled to exploit the vulnerabilities of other people. When you're dealing with a narcissist feels entitled to exploit the vulnerabilities of other people. When it comes to feeling vulnerable, a narcissist despises the idea of feeling vulnerable. And that's why, in my opinion, what I've noticed in my life professionally as well as personally is that narcissists have this eat or be eaten attitude. You might know a narcissist who feels entitled to steal. You might know a narcissist that feels entitled to lie. You might know a narcissist who makes excuses and feels entitled to cheat on their spouse. You might know a narcissistic mother or a narcissistic father who feels entitled to exploit the emotions of their children, who lack empathy for their children, who feel like their children are extensions of them, and that their children deserve to be treated poorly for whatever reason. A narcissistic parent can rationalize abusing their child. And so when we come up against these people in society, we often don't realize it until it's too late. In the beginning of a relationship with a narcissist, you will be idealized. Like, they make you feel seen. If you dare share a vulnerability with a narcissist, then a narcissist knows where your spiritual and emotional and psychological boo-boos are, and they are going to fill that space within you with a bunch of stuff. It's all fluff. In the end, you'll realize that it was all a bunch of malarkey. It was all a bunch of lies. They got you to attach to them, but they never attached to you. Why? Because attaching to you makes them vulnerable. Trusting you, letting down their guard, makes them vulnerable. And a narcissist exists to not feel vulnerable. When narcissists lie, they feel in control. When narcissists cheat, they feel in control. When narcissists gaslight you, mess with your head, get you to question your reality. When they call you crazy. When they accuse you of being gay. When they accuse you of being self-righteous. When they accuse you of exactly what they're guilty of, they will maintain control. Now, the reason I mention they'll accuse you of being gay is because this recently came up in a relationship with someone that I know. This person's wife actually accused him of being gay because she didn't want to have sex with him. And so she had her own agenda, her own ulterior motive, and things were going on behind closed doors and behind the scenes that her husband knew nothing about. And to add chaos to the confusion and to add more confusion to the chaos, what she did was she accused him of being gay. And according to this person, and from what I can see, this person is not gay. But my point is that it's a form of gaslighting. It's meant to confuse a victim of narcissistic abuse. When you're dealing with the narcissist, you don't know it in the beginning. They are charming. Sometimes they hit you with a sob story. And if you've got a charming narcissist who has an incredible sob story, it's a recipe for disaster. If you've got a woman out there who is charming you up and you're a man, and she's charming you up and telling you how beautiful you are, how handsome you are, and at the same time she's, counterpunching you with a sob story, you might want to take care of this person. You might feel seen by this person, understood by this person, wanted and validated by this person in a way that you've never felt before. And the double whammy is you have someone to save. You have someone to rescue now. And you can feel good about yourself because now you are being needed by this person. But you won't know until it's too late that you have been hoodwinked by a narcissist. If you are a female and you are being charmed by a seductive, charming, narcissistic man who is telling you that you are so beautiful. One of the things that I remember a man saying to me was, "Does your husband know how lucky he is?" And I was like, me? You think that my husband would be so happy and so lucky to have me? I remember what it felt like to feel seen. And it can be seductive for a woman to feel seen by a man, especially if you are in a dysfunctional marriage, and it's something to be aware of. But if you're a woman and you are suddenly being hit with flattery by a man, and then the double whammy is that they also have a sob story, this too can be a recipe for disaster. Oftentimes we find ourselves listening to sessions like this or podcasts like this or reading blog posts about this type of a topic after we've been sucked in by a narcissist. We've been chewed up and spit out. And we come to social media, we come to specific platforms and support groups as a way to try to make sense out of what has just taken place. And so if this is you, my heart goes out to you, but I encourage you to stick with it and stay on the path because things do get better. Now, getting to the topic of this session, why and how did I forgive a narcissist that infiltrated my life? There is someone that I love who's very near and dear to my heart who has been struggling with codependency and codependency symptoms and traits since for as long as I can remember. This is someone who tended to want to rescue women. This is someone who had tremendous empathy for women. This is someone who wanted to feel like he was on the same page with a woman. And so feeling connected and bonded to him as a man was very important. And regardless of how often I would say, maybe you want to look at this, maybe you want to look at that, and maybe this is a symptom of codependency, regardless of what I would say, it was kind of brushed off. And eventually in time, you get the message. I'm not this person's life coach. And so it wasn't my place to life coach him. And then one day, this person that I love, who's near and dear to my heart, brings to my home a woman who appeared to have high narcissistic traits. There was a sob story involved. There was a lot of flattery on her end. There wasn't a lot of proof to back up her claims. A lot of her stories seemed to have a lot of holes in them. And when you asked for evidence, you were accused of being too critical. You were accused of being too judgmental. Now, the person in my life that I love took offense when my family and his friends asked certain questions. He literally took offense. And he decided to side with this person who seemed to carry high narcissistic traits. An attempt was made to suggest that he not speak to certain members of his family. An attempt was made to isolate him from his friends. And in spite of these signs, the person who with high codependency traits was unable to see the signs that everyone else saw. He had been hooked in really good. For about a year, he had been flattered, he had been love-bombed, and he had been lied to, and he had no idea what was going on. There was a lot of future faking with a narcissist, talking about when things are going to be great, their life, their future life together. And so he was invested in a future that this narcissist helped create. And he was emotionally sucked in, psychologically sucked in, and then he protested and tried so hard to get everyone to believe in the truth of their relationship. And some people stood by him and other people said, no, I just absolutely do not believe that this relationship is on the up and up and this person is who she says she is. I am someone who let go, and I am someone who said, it is what it is. And this person is going to be involved with this narcissist, and I'm going to hope for the best. So fast forward after a marriage, and after a divorce, and after this codependent young man discovering that his wife had been lying to him since day one, after him going through the crazy point of questioning every area of his life. If you've come out of a narcissistically abusive relationship, you know there's a point where you question your own sanity. You question why you weren't able to see what everyone else saw. You literally feel like maybe you're losing your mind. It is so unfair. It is so mind-boggling to go through this and to feel like your insides have been ripped out when you realize you've dealt with someone who deliberately messed with your head, who had an ulterior motive from the day that you met them. Sometimes a narcissist has a green card in their mind. Sometimes a narcissist has citizenship for another country. Sometimes a narcissist has money on their mind. Sometimes a narcissist has prestige on their mind. There's something that the narcissist wants from you. Sometimes, and I think probably more cases than not, the narcissist wants a form of narcissistic supply. So whatever it is that they need, you will become the source. You will be the person that supplies them with their winter coat. You will be the person that supplies them with an airplane ticket. You will be the one that supplies them with the energy they need to feel dominant as human beings. Whatever it is, you will become a source of narcissistic supply. In some cases, there's something very specific that a narcissist, a sociopath, or a psychopath has in mind. And if you become a victim of this type of mindset and this type of personality, it can be terribly difficult, to say the least, to come out on the other side. Thankfully, the person I'm talking about had a wonderful support system, had wonderful friends, and who were there for him and understood how this could have happened, which helped alleviate the embarrassment and the shame to have been with someone for so long who had been lying to him since day one. Now, the reason I was able to forgive this person, who was incredibly damaging and who probably hasn't spent 5 minutes considering the damage she has caused. She probably hasn't spent 2 minutes considering the debt she put this person in. She probably hasn't spent 3 seconds wondering how her lies affected the people that wanted to believe in her and that wanted to trust her. She probably hasn't spent much time at all considering that. She's just on to the next victim, or on to the next source of narcissistic supply, on to the next fantasy. My heart really goes out to this person because I can't imagine living life this way. However, how did I come to forgive this person who hurt someone that I loved so much and who hurt so many people that I love so much? At the end of the day, what ended up coming out of this was the person that was involved with her shed his shell. When you think about a lobster, I think Jordan Peterson uses this analogy. A lobster that outgrows its shell has to crawl out of his shell. And there's a time when the lobster is vulnerable, the most vulnerable without his shell. And one of the things that he'll do is, or she'll do, whatever, is eat their shell to help them create another shell, the new shell. But a lobster that does not back out of the shell that they have outgrown will die, will suffocate. And so shedding the shell is very, very important. I can tell you that there is nothing that I could have said to this person that I love tremendously to get him to consider that he was involved with someone who had an ulterior motive. There was nothing that I could have said to this person to convince him that he was struggling with codependency, abandonment trauma, and issues especially with his childhood. Nothing. This person was not willing to look at his childhood. This person was not willing to look at himself. This person was very much absolutely addicted to being inside relationships and having codependent patterns play themselves out. He did not want to imagine that he felt like he needed a woman in his life, that he felt like he needed to be needed by a woman in his life. He did not want to look at and risk that perhaps the relationship that he invested so much time in, that he had tried desperately to convince other people was real. and in addition was asked to lie by this female for the sake of the relationship. So she actually asked him to lie about the relationship. He had to come to terms with all of that when it all fell apart, when she couldn't answer a few simple questions. That's when the entire relationship began to unravel. And things went from bad to worse, but amazing. Because ultimately what happened was, through all of this pain came a sense of reality. A reality that this person had never known before. Up until this relationship, the person that I'm speaking about had a string of codependent relationships. He lacked a sense of self. He felt like he was not good enough. He felt like he needed a woman to direct his life. He didn't mind working his tail off and making the money and being there and being committed. Incredibly faithful man. He didn't mind being that person, but he really felt like he needed someone to direct his life. And this is something that would have never been discovered had he not met this narcissist. Had he not had the excruciating pain of lying to himself and feeling suffocated by the lies that she was telling and the lies that he was telling himself. Had he not had this moment where he needed to acknowledge that he was inside a shell that was suffocating him, who knows what might have happened if he had continued to rationalize and justify the relationship, if he had continued to deny his own unhappiness, if he had continued to allow this person to abuse him and lie to him over and over and over and devalue him and discard him and gaslight him and threaten to leave him, threaten him with abandonment. She knew exactly where his spiritual boo-boos were, and she took full advantage of them, which is what someone with narcissism does. And so had he not had this painful, painful experience, he never would have backed out of that shell. So having this experience really allowed him the opportunity to look at himself in a whole new way. It was so blatantly apparent that he had been used, that he had been abused. He couldn't deny his part in it. He couldn't deny that he denied himself. He couldn't deny that for years he had denied his true feelings. That for years he felt like she was lying to him, but he denied it. When you struggle with codependency, and make no mistake, when you're dealing with a narcissist tries to cast their fishnet out into the world, and they wait for the person who they feel lacks boundaries to tolerate them. They look for the people with the kindest empathy. They want people who are loyal, who are trusting, and they will exploit you. And so make no mistake, a narcissist will scour a room and look for someone to take advantage of. The issue that we have to pay attention to as people in this world, we have to wonder about how good we are at listening to ourselves and hearing ourselves and rocking the boat when necessary. We have to ask ourselves, would I be able to call out someone who I thought lied to me, even if I love them? Would I be able to rock the boat with someone that asked me to lie when lying goes against everything that I believe in? Am I strong enough to say no to someone that I love if it goes against what I think is the right thing to do? Do I lack boundaries? Do I find it difficult to set boundaries? Do I ignore myself? Is my ego involved? Am I worried about what people think? Is it more important to me that people think I've got my life together than it is for me to tell the truth and explain to them I don't have it all figured out yet? These are really important questions that we have to ask ourselves. And it's important because narcissism is on the rise. And narcissists exist. Where there is a narcissist, you're going to most likely find a codependent somewhere. Or you're going to find someone who has incredibly high empathy, who also lacks the ability to set strong boundaries, who might be struggling with abandonment trauma as well. I did a video recently about how empaths who struggle with abandonment trauma are actually mirroring the narcissist shadow. I can tell you that the two people that I'm talking about mirrored one another's spiritual boo-boos. These people are both in pain. These people both have shadows. There's no doubt in my mind that the narcissistic female that I'm referring to is in tremendous pain. But unfortunately, she has developed the personality traits that allow her to exploit other people without much guilt and without much shame. She just does it. She can rationalize it. She can justify it. And unfortunately, when you catch her in a lie, she gets pretty downright angry, which upsets someone who has codependency, because codependents struggle with getting people angry. They struggle with the fear of abandonment. And so you can be involved with a narcissist who is in tremendous pain at their core, but that pain sits behind a wall, a steel wall. Narcissists don't get in touch with that pain. What they do is they project it onto other people. It's almost like they will make you feel the way they feel, abandoned, abused, and ashamed. They project all of this onto their victims, and they do not feel empathy for their victims. And I think that's where a lot of them get their sense of power and control from, being able to control another person. And so there's no doubt in my mind that these two people that I'm talking about are both in pain, or were both in pain. But I can tell you, of the two of them, the codependent person is the one who wanted to awaken. The codependent person wanted to look within. The codependent person wanted to change. And it was through all of the pain that he went through that allowed this amazing transition to take place. It was extremely painful immediately following the divorce. It was incredibly difficult to watch this person spiral and hit rock bottom. And it was very frightening to know that he was in such a dark place, and that this relationship had caused such despondence and such helplessness and such shame and such powerlessness. And it was quite the crawl back up and out of the pit of despair that this young man had to go through to get where he is today. And I'm happy to report that he continues to make strides. He continues to make gains. Still has work to do, but at least he's aware of his codependency. At least he's aware of his shadows. At least he's aware of how he got where he got. So I'm thankful for the narcissist that infiltrated our life. I'm thankful for the narcissist. And it took me a while to get here, because there was a point where I was absolutely, completely full of anger at the idea that anybody could come into someone's life and abuse them the way she did, lie the way she did, justify the way she did, abuse and use people and just take and take and take. I was so angry for a while. But I started getting sick, and I realized that I was trying to control a situation that I could not control, which is spiritual death. When you think that you can control something that you can't control, it's spiritual death. And I'm always looking for ways to evolve spiritually, emotionally, consciously, cognitively. I want to make sure that I'm not coming purely through the emotional body, because that to me represents my 3D body. It represents my physical body. And this is the densest aspect of me. You and I are so much more than our emotions and our 3D physical body. And if we focus on our consciousness, if we focus on evolving, if we focus on detachment, if we focus on letting go, then we can continue to evolve consciously, and we will stay on the path to enlightenment. Ultimately, we discover that it's not our right to control things that we can't control, and that people come into our lives to teach us things about ourselves. So in this situation, I think that both people mirrored one another in a very dysfunctional way. And I cannot blame the narcissist for coming into this person's life in a guilt or shame-based way. This person has her own demons to work out, and it's my hope and my prayer, and I pray almost every single day, that this person finds a way back to the self, that this person finds a way to heal whatever it is that causes her to behave this way, which is going to be a very tall order. Looking within and facing the trail of chaos you've left behind you is a very tall order. But I do believe that if your heart is in the right place, and if your intentions are in the right place, you can do it. You probably need a lot of help to do it, a lot of support to do it, but I do believe it's possible. Studies and research suggest that most narcissists don't go into therapy. or they're coerced into therapy. They have to go into therapy because of a DUI or some anger management issue, or the spouse is threatening to leave them. But research suggests that narcissists think that they're smarter than the therapist. They see no value in therapy, and they're wired to not be vulnerable. And so, however, I do believe that there's always the potential for someone who has high narcissistic traits to change, if they want to change. So that's my hope and my prayer for her. But it is amazing to be able to look at this objectively and step back and not make it about me, not make it about my anger, not make it about, well, I told him this was going to happen, not make it about, well, I've been trying to tell this person that he's struggling with codependency due to his childhood for like 15 years, not make it about me, and just instead observe it objectively and then look at the butterfly effect. This person who went through this incredibly tragic relationship is better than ever. This person is clearer than ever. This person has found the help he's needed in a way that he could never have done before, because now he recognizes what was wrong. Now he appreciates programming. Now he appreciates how his mother and his father both impacted his life in a way that he could not see before. Now he realizes his caretaking traits, his subjugation, like the way he would subjugate himself for the sake of a female, his need to put other people's needs before his own. These were things that he never saw before. He tended to believe that if you met someone and they spoke to you, he believed you right off the bat. He didn't see any reason for people to lie, and that's because that's who he was. But this relationship really taught him to be a lot more attuned to what he's feeling and a lot more careful about who he shares information with. And so at the end of the day, this is not something that I or my friends or my friends' mothers or my husband or anyone in my family or any friend of this friend that I have, none of us could have done what this narcissist was able to do through this relationship. None of us could have helped him break through and break free like this relationship did. And so thinking this way and observing what's come out of this situation has allowed me to forgive and let go of any hard feelings that I ever had towards this narcissistic female. Some of us have to hold on to our anger because it's the only thing that will allow us to feel like we can get up in the morning and face the day. So I'm not suggesting that everyone in the world has to take the route that I took. I'm just sharing a little bit of my story because ultimately I don't like the idea of anything in the 3D world controlling me, including anger, including the actions of another person, or the relationship dynamics of other people. I don't want that to control me. That's not where my power lies. My power lies within me. And it does help to release, let go, and detach, and to imagine a relationship for this person that would empower him. So that's where I spend some of my time each day, is imagining this person in an amazing relationship, imagining him healthy. And I also even imagine the narcissist healthy. I imagine the narcissist getting her act together because this person is running scared. There's no way that you can live this way and create this type of havoc in people's lives and not be running scared on the inside. Just my opinion. But I'm not suggesting that just because this is something that I've chosen to do, that other people do it too. Like I said, I'm just sharing a little bit about my story. And in some cases, holding on to our anger is what allows us to face the day. It allows us to externalize the pain that we're having, because it takes time to learn how to process the pain that's within. It takes time for self-analysis to kick in. If you're willing to go into the labyrinth within, you are a hero. You are a warrior. You are a champion, because going within means you have to face all of the things that you run from on a daily and may not even realize that you're running from. And so I encourage you to take the time it takes to look at your relationships a little bit more objectively. Have you been involved with a narcissist? And if so, what have you learned from that relationship? What have you learned about yourself? What have you learned about life? Being in the relationship with my ex-husband taught me everything, or so much. I'm still learning from that relationship. In fact, my career was born out of that relationship. 7 books have been born out of that relationship. I have 3 incredible children that came out of that relationship. I found myself. When I was in a relationship with my ex-husband, I was in a dark space. I did not have a self. I expected him to give me a sense of self. And ultimately what I learned was that's impossible. Nobody could help me find me but me. My name is Lisa Romano. I'm the Breakthrough Life Coach and best-selling author. And if you'd like to listen to one of my books for free, you can do so by clicking the link below. If you would like to participate in the on-demand 12-week Breakthrough Coaching Program at 50% off, yes, just click the link in the description box. And if you are interested in joining my Breakthrough Warrior membership site where I give a live Q&A each month, yep, look for the link in the description box. Namaste, everybody. Until next time, be careful out there, and please never forget to think. Bye for now. If you love this content, check out the next video, and don't forget to click the link below so you can take the codependency quiz. It's not uncommon for someone with codependency to look for someone to take care of, to look for someone to fix, to look for someone who has a multitude of issues so that they can find their way into their lives and figure out how to fix them.